Hey there, you're listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, and MMA on occasion. Here's your host, RJ Carbone.
And a high drive into left center field. Stanley's going to watch another one fly. Are you kidding me? DiVincenzo a three. Bang! Bang! Knicks take a
Take this time to apologize to absolutely nobody.
At the wall. See ya! See ya! See ya! Mr. November.
Anthony for three. Bang! That one goes down and the game is tied.
Rose, you shook up the world again.
I did it again. My God did it, man. I really just had
Gonna have to. Brunson running away. Oh my! He has been the best player to put on that uniform.
Ball game over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Well, gonna try to keep this one short. That was one of the most disgusting performances I've seen in a long time. This season, it was gross. The Knicks last night, just not a performance I want to keep talking about. So I want to try to keep this as short as humanly possible. Yuck. The Lakers had more than the Knicks did last night. The Knicks came into this game with this lack of urgency, and that hurt them on their closeouts continuously. They were confused and lost in coverage. At certain points, it was pick your poison as to which coverage they were going to go with, but I think a part of this game was Tibbs not leaning into flexibility in coverage. I think the Knicks were schemed to death offensively, as in their half-court offense faced a very similar issue, which you probably already know what I'm talking about if you're a consistent listener to the show. OG Anunoby gets hurt. Brunson and Towns are awful on both sides of the floor, especially Towns. And in the midst of this madness, while LeBron drops 33, 11, and 12 at his favorite playground, as he once put, we find out why he probably had that much energy. Because the team that the Knicks lost to, 128 to 112, traded for Luka Doncic. That guy's going to play with LeBron. I don't want to spend this episode talking about that. This is a Knicks show, but that happened. And so once again, the great Mark Cuban loses a point guard that he didn't want to pay. Didn't want to pay Brunson. It goes back to the whole Steve Nash thing, right? Crazy. I don't want to talk about that anymore, because that's not Knicks, and I want to talk about real quickly too. Like, I don't want to go on forever. This 128 to 112 loss. Got a couple of talking points, and then we're going to wrap it up there. First, we're going to get to a quick break. Be back in less than 30 seconds. BD4 is available on social media for those who want to follow. You can find BD4 on Instagram at BD4Pod. You can find us on X at BD4Pod. And you can find us on Facebook by simply searching BD4. All right. 128 to 112 last night at the Garden. The Knicks lost this game, and yes, the 128 points were brutal, and we'll get into that. I want to start with what I think is more of a concerning trend than anything. And it's a problem that, people are going to bitch all year. People have been bitching all year about Tom Thibodeau and the minutes the rotations that he puts out there. People, including myself, have been constantly complaining about the team's defense, which again, we will touch. I think what ultimately drags the Knicks down this season and is the reason they go home early is what I'm about to touch on. When the Knicks run into teams that have the personnel with wingspan that do lots of switching defenses that throw their wing to Towns and their big to Josh Hart, it's been a season-long problem with zero solution on the Knicks end. And we are now 60% through the season, and the Knicks still haven't figured this out. It's not something that every defense does to them, because obviously they've got a great offense, but it's something that just enough defenses do to them to where it really has me worried about if this team can win a championship. And again, it's a bigger concern than defense for me. And it's something that we've seen when the Knicks played Houston earlier in the year. When they played Boston, Al Horford did that on Josh Hart. OKC with Hartenstein hedging, and you saw it against the Lakers last night. To contend for an NBA title, the Knicks are going to have to find an answer for this. Because how elite is your elite offense if you're unable to jump over this hill? Every single time the Knicks run into switching personnel who scheme them this way, it shuts off the Knicks pick and roll attack. It doesn't neutralize their attack, it shuts them off. Last night, Brunson and Towns combined for 28 points. Took them 30 shots. They shot 33%. They were 25%, 1 for 4 from 3. We're talking about one of the best pick and roll duos in basketball, if not the best. They melt down when they're faced with this scheme. It creates major issues. Towns is not great at posting smalls and posting wings. It's an unfavorable switch for Brunson when Towns screens the wing into the action. And the defense is going to use their big to help off of Josh Hart because he's a non-threat. He can't shoot well. And they'll help on to Towns post-ups. Or they'll help on to Brunson drives. And with Towns out there, last night, the Lakers were showing a lot of bodies to him, especially once OG went down and they lost that spacing. But the Lakers sent a ton of backside help to the post to force Towns' baseline, and there was a brutal possession that displayed exactly that. It was, I think, later in the first quarter. That one shot he took, he was kind of off balance, forced him baseline, complete brick, because they sent backside help. Towns has trouble. He has trouble, and he had trouble last night finding options outside the post on the perimeter. When the Lakers doubled the post, and they did a whole lot last night, Towns made some bad reads, and with the Knicks lacking shooting without OG on the floor, and with Hart and Precious sharing the floor sometimes, a lot of the time, which is a bad lineup, which I continue to say, it creates problems, and you don't want that, man. You don't want those lineups where it's Josh Hart and Precious Achiuwa. It's so detrimental for Karl Towns. There was a possession early second quarter where Towns and Precious run zoom action together. Why is Precious coming into that handoff? The Lakers double the post off the handoff. They double the post on Towns off of Precious. Because the Knicks weren't spacing with Deuce and OG, but they put those two guys out of the action weak side. Precious needs to be at the 5 when he's in those lineups. It's way too often where Precious is standing on the corner or he's next to the action above the basket. And because of that, now the defense sends help off Precious to Towns, and Precious is at the same time unable to get to the basket in time off the pass. But if you're playing him at the 5 and he's in the dunker spot, it's an easier play for the Knicks because now Towns can make a much better pass, and you're playing 4-on-3 to beat the Lakers in rotation once they send the help off them. So overall, when Towns drives or posts, anytime the defense loads up help, he's not good at making reads. It's either a turnover, it's an offensive foul, it's a late decision. So to make life easier for him, you've got to optimize those lineups with Precious at the 5. And then in the case of Jalen, this is more straightforward. Putting the wing on Towns means you can't run your pick and roll because the defense switches the wing with early help off of Josh Hart or Precious, again, which is why that's a bad lineup, and they clog up the gaps. It removes Brunson's ability to walk into three-point attempts. It clogs up the driving lanes. You call Towns in the action to screen for him. Now that wing switches to Jalen. I thought, the Knicks should have gone away from those Hart, Precious lineups for more offense in the second half. I understand that Tibbs is always going to be in love with size and defense and rebounding, right? And you saw a big reason he likes to stick with size in the first quarter, where you had multiple possessions at the end there where LeBron killed Shamet on the post. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword. You do one thing, you're going to get hurt somewhere else. So I don't want to make too big of a deal out of this, but last night, I feel like, especially once you lost OG's spacing ability in that second half, I feel like you wanted as much shooting as possible out there. Deuce, Payne, Bridges, Shamet, for more of a free-flowing offense to open up the half court, to open up the floor. Playing Hart and Precious with Towns so consistently, it diminishes spacing. It allows easy help on primary actions that involve Brunson and Cat, especially without Anunoby on the floor. So overall, it was tough for Brunson and Towns to create offense and create advantages against these schemes, and it continues to be a problem for the Knicks. I do wish that we went to those delay actions a little more. I wanted to see a little more delay offense, elbow, zoom actions with DHO up top, post splits between Towns and Mikal. Mikal likes flipping those screens there. They went to it early. It worked, but they didn't really go back to it much in the second quarter. And then they lost that ability to really spam those when OG went down in the second half. So in short, that's why their offense wasn't on last night, and that's why there's this one lingering concern of mine with this offense. You go to the defensive side of the floor, and this is the problem. It was the problem with Minnesota in the past with Towns. It's why they had to trade for Rudy Gobert, because Towns got exposed last night on defense. It was quite disgusting to watch. The Knicks as a team were out of sync. Didn't know what coverage was best. Drop, switch, hedge out, play at the level. And once they lost OG, they were just way too small and not switchable enough. There was a lot of problem with size, a lot of staying home versus sending help to mismatches, right? I mentioned the possessions where LeBron took Shamet to the post in the first quarter. He killed him, and there was pretty much no help sent. OG sent some late help on a few of those possessions, but not really. It was more soft help. I thought the Knicks should have sent help, even if it risked being put into a blunder. But there were just a ton of breakdowns off ball, on ball, and drop, right? And Towns, I thought, was exploited heavily in drop coverage last night, and his closeouts coming up from drop were not sharp. And it was a problem with Mitchell Robinson last year, struggling against small lineups, coming up on the pick and pop and on 3-point shots off the pick and roll. But it was just like he was coming up with his hands down consistently on a lot of these attempts. That Rui corner ball in transition in the first quarter, his hands were down. There was a possession in the middle of the fourth quarter. It was a crucial moment. He switches onto a LeBron pick and roll. His hands are down. LeBron gets an open three to put the Lakers up double figures. Big moment because the Knicks were kind of creeping back in it. Austin Reeves destroyed him. Poor footwork on him, leading to open threes and easy drives. There was some miscommunication with Mikal Bridges in transition, who was picking up who, led to an open look for Reeves. There was that one play early third quarter. It was a double drag reject. Josh Hart gets caught. He's behind. Towns is too far and drop with his hands down, leads to an open Reeves three. The LeBron James, Finney-Smith pick and roll killed him. Some really bad switches, awfully late closeouts from drop on those. Countless times in the second quarter where Finney-Smith would get an open three at the top of the arc because of some bad switches and bad closeouts. So it seemed like the Knicks didn't know what coverage they wanted on those LeBron DFS pick and rolls and those LeBron Rui pick and rolls. Do you switch it? But again, without OG's switchability out there, you lost that factor. You couldn't really consistently switch. And you saw some bad mismatches when you did. And when the Knicks refused to switch it, then they would get torched and drop. Do you hedge out and you rely on the recover a little more? Tried that a couple times. They got hurt when they attempted it. And especially without OG as that backline tagger on the roll, it's hard. I almost think that was probably the best scheme to use. I don't know. It's a lot. It requires perfect execution and a lot of conditioning. And there were times where the Knicks were put into rotation and beat off the hedge last night with Brunson, Cam, Mikal not rotating quick enough. But I didn't think dropping primarily was a good idea. Even with the Lakers struggling versus drop coverage this season. I just look at Towns and he's not capable enough. He's not capable enough physically, fundamentally. And he wasn't attentive enough last night on top of that. And it just led to a disastrous defensive performance. I actually think the best approach may have been a simple lineup adjustment. And I think the Knicks maybe would have been better off because Towns wasn't giving you much with Precious at the 5 in switch everything lineups without Cat down the stretch. You know, he's not going to do that. You understand. But I very much dislike Precious at the 4 because with Hart, it kills your offense. And with Towns, it diminishes switchability defensively. It's again, a lot of double-edged sword stuff. And now without OG Anunoby, it's going to be tough. OG went down after, a minute in the third quarter there. Looked like a non-contact injury, so obviously worst case comes to mind. Did they avoid worst case? Knicks PR tends to believe so. Who trusts Knicks PR? Not anybody who follows this team. All I know is I hope he's back soon. I don't know if people are blaming the big, evil, bad Tom Thibodeau for this. I bet they are. They're probably finding an angle too. But this is just an injury-prone player being hurt again. I don't think it's an overwork injury. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I really shouldn't give my opinion on this, nor should Twitter. But I think best case, you see him in a few weeks, sometime soon after All-Star break. I don't know. He's a slow healer. But listen, this contract, I don't want to say it's obviously an overpay, but listen, you love his defense, you love the spacing he brings, but the guy is, first of all, he's not a good offensive player, so that's always going to be the question when you hand out contracts like that, but he's injury prone. He gets hurt a lot, and you've seen that since you've had him. And his body usually takes a long time to recover. You hope he can get back out there very soon. We'll get back and wrap this up pretty soon. Hey guys, just a quick reminder, this podcast is also available in video format on YouTube. So be sure to go over to the YouTube channel, BD4, subscribe, like the videos, comment and tell me how much I suck or maybe how much you like the video. We'd very much appreciate it. Don't have time to sit down and watch a video? You can listen to BD4 on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And you can also watch the video format on Spotify too. If you feel like supporting the podcast, you can Venmo at Robert-Carbone-JR-28. We really appreciate your support. Do you enjoy Yankees baseball but are tired of hearing me yap? I have a suggestion for you. Go check out Yankee Crazy Podcast. Greg Gill is a Yankees podcaster on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and he's now selling merch. Go to yankeecrazy.myshopify.com. Real briefly, Josh Hart was the best Knick on the floor last night. So he has now 7 game balls on the year, 26 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists. I love him. Everyone loves him. Hustle, skill. But again, like we discussed, the lack of his lack of ability to shoot and space does affect other aspects on this team. It affects your offense. It affects some of the lineups you're able to effectively use. That's the one thing. But I thought he did a fine job on LeBron, given the disadvantages. LeBron's a different animal, but Josh Hart, 7 game balls now on the year. He's averaging, let's see if I can pull it up, 14, 10, and 6. 14, 10, and 6 on the year. 56%, 35% on threes, 81% at the foul line. Go to the second unit and Precious Achiuwa. 15 points, 15 boards. I thought he did a good job. 3 assists. He was fine. Again, I just wish he played more 5 when Towns was out there. And would have loved to see him down the stretch in non-Towns lineups for defensive purposes. But I get it. 8 game balls now on the year for Precious Achiuwa, who's averaging 6 and 6 with a block and a steal. And don't know if he's going to be on this team for much longer. Hold on. Just given his contract is one of the few tradable ones on the team. He's got this $6 million deal this year, so that could help the Knicks. Because remember, the Knicks are not allowed to increase payroll through trade this year. They can only decrease or stay the same. So if they want to improve their team, it's either going to be Mitch, who's, I know it's descending. I think it's down to 12 now this year. Or Precious. So we'll see. Who's up next? Houston. Tomorrow night, Houston for the last game of the homestand. It's another defense that can play the same exact way the Lakers just did. So it's a good test for the Knicks offense, especially, again, without OG Anunoby. Last game of the homestand before the Knicks go on the road for a game. I think they're on the road for one game. It's kind of a back and forth ever after that. Houston tomorrow night. Then they're in Toronto Tuesday. So that's a back-to-back coming up. So they got a back-to-back. They got to go from the Garden to Canada. And then Saturday, the 8th, you're playing the Celtics at the Garden, the real Garden. And then you got the Pacers, the Hawks. So you got 3 of your rivals in a row there. So, again, this next month it's going to be a tough schedule for the Knicks. And we'll see what happens regarding these injured players. OG, Mitch, we'll see. Trades, I don't know. Let's wrap it up with our trivia question when we return from break. Stay connected with us. Visit BD4blog.com to explore our blog, tune in to our latest podcasts, and follow us on social media. Thank you for being a part of this community. Okay. Episode 795 here, our trivia question of the day. Where does Josh Hart's 7 triple-doubles this season rank him among the Knicks' all-time single-season leaders? Where does Josh Hart's 7 triple-doubles this season rank him among the Knicks' all-time single-season leaders? All right. That's it. Appreciate you all tuning in. I'll see you in the next show. Guys, definitely check out episode 794, which is our most recent episode prior to this one. Russ Lickey from NY Yankee Dad joined us, and we talked Yankees for about an hour and a half. So, one of the greater episodes that we've had with the guest. Definitely check it out. And as far as my Knicks fans out there, I'll see you soon. Later. Well, if you made it this far, that means you listened to or watched the entire episode. Thank you. Just remember to follow, subscribe, download, rate and review, and all that fun stuff to help out the podcast. And I will see you in the next episode of BD4.